series of Catholic Lives Matter. On this 3-episode series of Catholic Lives Matter, I had the absolutely unbelievable opportunity to sit down with a very good friend of mine, Lance Goetz, who has a testimonial that is so powerful, I have rarely heard one like it. Back in 1998, Lance Goetz was expecting to graduate high school in a couple of days. What he didn't expect was a train accident that almost took his life, and having survived, left him permanently disabled and suffering from chronic pain. While most people his age were considering what was next in their life journey and attempting college, Goetz was attempting to learn how to deal with repeat surgeries, crippling pain, depression, and PTSD. As he tried to carry the weight of the years and years of major surgeries on his own, he seemed only to fail until he began to trust more in the Lord. He had felt forgotten him. Slowly, his life went from a downward spiral to a life focused on the light and life of Jesus Christ. He became an educator, focused on helping young people. He found a partner who seemed to be sent by heaven itself, and he became a father, despite doctors doubting he would ever have the ability to have children. Today, Lance is a modern-day story of Job, and he continues to be a walking testimony of the power of prayer and faith in Jesus Christ, as he continues to serve those around him in his role as husband, father, and educator. Without further ado, episode 1 of my interview with Lance Goetz. How are you today, Lance?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Father.
It's
happy to be here.
Great to have you on, and for the most part, everybody, I'm just going to let him tell his story because it's a very unique one. So if you would just kind of start from the beginning of the night that you were hit by a train, and moving forward through your class, having gone to Catholic school, having gone to St. Mary's, really surrounding you with love and prayer, pulling through that time and the recovery process.
I'm, if you don't mind, going to pull it back even a little sooner. In the beginning, my parents were sending us to public school, me and my siblings. I lived on a dairy farm far, far out of the capital city of North Dakota, Bismarck. And in the public school, we found ourselves confronted with many problems, many fights, and many conclusions that left my parents feeling like their kids were in trouble. Were they a part of some of the fights? Yes. And in fact, they were trying to do what was best. And what was best was them sending their kids, driving their kids into town in a time that they didn't have, and sending us to Christian school. This became part of the most important part of my story, I think, in the beginning, where the miracle gains its legs from. Because in Catholic school, I started in the 3rd grade. My older siblings started a little bit later, but I was able to grow up in a community surrounded by people who appreciated Jesus, who had faith and decisiveness when it came down to loving their religion and loving their family. It was really a great gift that my parents gave me and my family. And growing up in the school, you know, you always think about the grass is greener on the other side. Well, my grass was driving in and out of town and spending hours just getting to school and trying to play sports and participate. I ended up staying at many friends' houses afterwards, and was able to go to school with your brother, Father Josh Waltz, and that alone was a gift as well. And I was able to go to school with you as well, except you were going to school, obviously, with my sister. All in the Catholic schools in the Bismarck system. I say this is an important part because when I got hurt, it seemed that hundreds and hundreds of people were willing to drop whatever they were doing and run to the hospital. I don't see this. I don't see 10 people dropping everything. I don't see 5 people dropping it. Very few do we see this kind of dedication in a community and this type of faith. That, I believe, is where the miracle stems. Not even as much that I'm alive and can walk and am able to have my family and become a productive member of society, but that all the people who were there, they petitioned the Lord. They prayed the rosary. They begged for me, and they were able to have their faith rewarded on a level that is very difficult to describe for every individual. I've heard their stories. They've come to me with their stories and these beautiful testimonies of, sadly, my accident put them in a place where they were broken because I was friends with many. I was friends with many and enemy of none. And for all these people to put all their faith, to completely surrender, despite what the doctors are telling them, despite what their teachers are telling them, and then be rewarded for their faith when everything else seemed that I was going to be, a dead duck. I think the miracle is more for those people than it is even that I am here to speak with you today. But the school day was wonderful. It was a beautiful day to get hit by a train. It really was. I mean, I'm sad it went off the rails. I went to school and went to my classes, but that day was a baccalaureate day. A baccalaureate is a mass where you basically consummate the end of your school with your class, and everyone was dressed very nice, and it was a mass of smiles, and you could feel a warmth in the room with everyone that was there. It made me very joyful and proud to be there, and happy to see all my classmates and see their smiling faces throughout the day. After that, I had to go take one final with my teacher. We were able to have 2 priests teach us religion. The priests were Father Austin Vetter and Father Thomas Richter, who later became Monsignor Richter, and Bishop Vetter. They taught us religion. So Father Richter had me do a oral exam for my final. It was the only exam that I took, and I became a B+ Catholic. Apparently, I got a B+, and I was happy with a B+. I didn't study apparently, so I felt the B+ was pretty good. I'm above average. I thought that was pretty good. Now I realize I'm gonna try a little bit more for that A, but still. I went home to the farm. Most of my friends at that time, because we were 5 days from graduating high school, most of my friends were off into the clouds, enjoying themselves immensely, just caught up in that moment of life when you're 18 and everything feels possible and like nothing can bring you down. There is an immortality feeling when you are 18 and that close to graduation. I think if we all truly consider our hearts at that moment, we felt like nothing could hurt us, and we were powerful, and we had everything in the palm of our hands. I felt that. I was scared. I didn't know where I was going. I had plans, but I didn't know what was going to happen. But I felt untouchable at the same time. I babysat a little bit. I was helping a little bit on the farm, but ultimately I was going to go to a softball game. It was almost a family tradition because it was my brother's team. Oh, they were waiting for me. They thought I'm a big guy. I was 6'3", 220 at the time. They were expecting me to come there and hit home runs after home run, and they were really, really upset because they were planning on me coming. And on my way to there, on a gravel road, on a crossing where it required arms and lights, it needed arms and lights, according to the Federal Highway own rules, the Federal Highway Administration's own rules. It was needing more because of the angle, because of the lack of sight. I had my window down. My radio off. I was enjoying the sun in the moment, driving down the gravel road to this country softball game. And I just didn't see it. I was looking. I wasn't trying to run it. My car couldn't run it, and it didn't really have any power anyways. But I looked. I just didn't see it until it was too late. You see, I ended up seeing it, but it was about 67 feet away. I know this because they measured the skid marks. I know this because I remember this moment when I saw the train. I instantly slammed on the brakes, and I hoped I would stop in time. Part of me thought about taking the deep ditch, but I thought I would roll the car. And I had only one moment to say a prayer. And part of me always wondered if I just prayed for forgiveness right before I died, if I could just time that one moment and ask for forgiveness right before it. Well, that's what I did. My last thought before the train hit me was, please, God, forgive me. Not for getting hit by a train, not for anything like that, but for the sins that I had, for the negative thoughts in my heart. I was hoping that I would pass the test, so to speak. And I scooted over as much as I could, left my left foot on the brakes because the train was about ready to hit my driver's side door. It was doing about 65 miles an hour. And when it hit my driver's side door, that's when I stopped remembering for a while. The last thing I can remember is trying to crawl home, arm over arm in the gravel rocks. When they found me, they called the ambulance, and the first ambulance to get there was a country ambulance, and they were way too under-equipped to even move me. They were just trying to stop the blood. I could have bled out just from the hole in my wrist. My legs were basically like rubber. All the bones were so shattered and fragmented, there was nothing left, and the muscle was pulverized. I also had a hole in my backside where my tailbone was clipped off, and my intestines were pulled out, covered with gravel and grass and rock, like the icing of a donut with a bunch of sprinkles on top. I had multiple places where I would have and should have died, but we had to wait for an ambulance to come from the biggest city, to come from Bismarck. And when it got there, it picked me up and took me into town, and had to stop twice to save my life before I even got to the hospital. On the way there, it stopped because one of my lungs was punctured. My rib was broken and stabbed through it. And the other time was simply because my heart stopped, and they had to restart it. When I got to the hospital, it was kind of funny because one of the doctors in the emergency room, I played football with his son, Dr. Mickelson, an emergency room doctor, and as soon as he heard it was me, he started making phone calls to the best people he could find. And this maybe is one of the reasons that I was able to have such great care. The problem is they were already laying odds that 99.9% chance he wouldn't even make it to the hospital. When I got there, I was still awake, and they were taking me just to get me cleaned up, to pick all the gravel out of my insides and try to figure out if they could save my life or my limbs or the other pieces that were kind of dangling. The strange part was, I was there, and in less than 20 minutes, Father Richter walked in with about 18 students behind him. He didn't walk in like a impassionate person. He walked in almost like a sergeant in arms, leading a battalion. And he wanted to do all he could. Of course, what he could do was help my friends because they were struggling, and lead prayer. You see, in school, I was a really big guy, and I played sports, and I was good. I was pretty good at sports and well liked. And I remembered as a freshman that there were some upperclassmen that were always very happy to torture the underclassmen, to throw them in garbage cans, stuff them in lockers, and threaten them. And when I saw that as a freshman, I hated it. So when I was a freshman, when I was a senior, I made sure I would stop that. I made sure I was friends with freshmen. I made sure that as a senior, I was friends with everybody. One of the greatest compliments I received was that Lance, he'd sit at anybody's table at lunch. And I would. Any clique there was. The band kids, they were cool. They could do stuff I couldn't do. The actors, boy, they had personality that I couldn't match. The athletes, whatever athlete there was, I'd go sit with them. It didn't matter who they were. They were important, and I'd talk to them, and I became their friend. I believe this idea of hating bullying and this idea of loving everybody is partly what helped save my life, because those first 20 people that came to the hospital called everybody they knew. And anyone who heard the call came to the hospital that night. They didn't think I'd make it more than an hour, but by an hour's time, there was close to 70, 80 people there. Already, the small chapel in the hospital was packed, and they were praying the rosary over and over again. And they decided that maybe the right leg could be saved. Let's see if there's anything else we can do. After another hour, there was close to 200 people that dropped everything and rushed to the hospital. And there was starting to get clumped around where there wasn't even room to sit anymore. Everyone was just standing in the entryway and wherever they could in the hallways. And the more they prayed, the better the prognosis. They thought my spine was busted up, but maybe I wasn't going to be a quadriplegic. And by the time there was 300 people there, the doctors worked into the night. It was probably around 9 o'clock when they decided that maybe there was a chance to save my left leg. See, they couldn't do all these operations at once. It was way too much. I spent the next week in major operations, but I was breathing and my heart was beating. I was told there was over 350 people there. I was told nonstop, on repeat, they prayed the rosary. And this accident happened on 5/13, May 13th, the anniversary of Fatima. And the more they petitioned Mary to pray for me, to help me, the more they were on their hands and knees. And from my understanding, with tribulation and tears on their face and fears in their heart, the more it seemed that I had a chance. Just a chance. At the end of the night, 3 a.m., Father sent everybody home. The doctors were done working on me that night, and there's a good chance that he won't make it, but don't give up faith. That's what he told them. And later on, actually, in the ICU, Father Richter confided in me that people came up to him and said, "Father, I don't know what to do. This is Lance. He doesn't deserve this. Anyone but him. I don't understand. Why would this happen?" And Father confided in me that he told them that if they truly believed with all their heart, I will be okay. He confided in me with that because, if the worst of the worst happened, those guys wouldn't have been in the best position. But as it was, I think I made, Father Richter look pretty good by the end of the day. And he, in turn, saved my life by leading an orchestra of prayers, by leading a community of a Catholic high school with kids that, not everyone knew if they were even Christian at the time. When you're 18 and you're confused and you don't know which way is up sometimes. And the beauty of it is, even those who were not certain on Catholicism or religion, or this is just what my parents make me do, even those people who would even call themselves atheists, by the end of that night, they believed in miracles. But But it took more than just one night. The next day, they were having mass for me. They sent out prayer requests to other places. They sent prayers that I know somehow from our little state of North Dakota reached all the way down to Texas. And I know that someone who was in the same church with Deion Sanders, who is a man of faith, he was praying for me there. I know the prayers went all the way down to Texas, and I know the prayers went all the way overseas to Ireland as I received letters from a Mary Catherine in Ireland who prayed for me there. These prayers didn't just live in our small community, they went everywhere. And for the next week, I became a very strong human interest story. At first my parents were very upset because they said I was probably drinking, and I wasn't. I wasn't drinking at all, not a drop. I was on my way to go play softball. I wanted to hit home runs. I wanted to be able to make sure I could hit that ball. But the news had to do a retraction. And that first night, you got to understand, my family, we're dairy farmers. That first night, they pulled both my parents out of a milk parlor pretty much, where milk parlor is not a very sanitary place to be. You see, cows are not potty trained. You know, they go when and where they want to go. And so my parents, they didn't have time to go take a shower before they went to the hospital. They didn't have time to even wash their hands. They just went. And they were sitting outside while they were operating on me. And that first night, I was told that they came out to my mom and dad. And they said, listen, his heart, it's going. It's going, and this kid is fading fast. We don't know what to do. They asked my parents if one of them would come and talk to me, because sometimes in a situation like this, the voice of a parent can help you fight. Unfortunately, my mom, she was too distraught, too broken up. She didn't think she could do it. My dad was spending most of the time just trying to keep her together as he kept himself strong. And this is the power of a father's voice, because my father went in there. And he went in there not with a whisper, but he went and stood by me after they put all the stuff over all of his clothes and tried to sanitize him as much as possible. And he went and stood by my face and my head, and he started talking to me, and he didn't whisper. My father did not whisper. He commanded, Lance, you got to fight. Fight! And he started using football references, because I was a football player. It's fourth quarter. You got to fight. Don't give up. And my heart, that was almost gone, started to beat harder and stronger, because I was listening to my father's voice. It took me a long time. It took me a long time to heal. It took me 7 years of surgeries, extreme surgeries. It took me a lot of physical therapy and a lot of pain to get where I could walk without help. But I did. And ultimately, the miracle was all those prayers. Those prayers were answered for each one of those people.
Absolutely incredible story, Lance. Thank you for sharing the beginning of what we're going to make into a little bit of a series here. As you can hear from the beginning of this story, so many people coming together, offering prayers surrounding him and his family, with tremendous prayers to Our Lady on the feast of Our Lady of Fatima. The Catholic community really pulling together, and there really was no other explanation as to why Lance made it through this time, aside from divine intervention. But that was just the beginning, everyone, of Lance's story, inspiring as it is. As he just mentioned, that there was a long recovery moving forward in which faith and Jesus and Our Lady and so many other things were a part of that. And so we are going to come back to this several-part series with Lance Goetz, who was hit by a train. Everyone, this is Holy Fire with Father Justin Waltz, and stay tuned as we continue to hear this magnificent and miraculous story from Lance Goetz.